Hi guys, this is Brandon Miller with another ActionScript 3 based Air tutorial. What I'm going to be showing you how to do today is how to create an Adobe Air based RSS reader. If you haven't already read how to do the custom Chrome and whatnot, I would suggest that you watch those toots first. Another tutorial that might help some of the beginners that are watching this is setting up your Flash-based buttons with an array, and also my Flash switch statement tutorial. I'm just going to do some high-level overviews on how this works and really get into the nitty-gritty on how to get an RSS loaded into a window here. Um, so I've got my top Chrome here, and I also have my application background. This is set to be transparent. I've given it a close button and a minimize button, which are also defined in the action script. I've put a feed display dynamic text field on the page here, and the only reason I've put that on the stage is to use it as a placeholder for when I load in my HTML loader. I've also dropped a scroll bar on the stage, and it has no target, so the target content is null on that. I put a nice little loader animation on here and a little logo in the background there. So let's get into the action script now. Alright, first thing I did, because I'm not really making this too dynamic, is just to give you guys a real quick overview on it. I set the feed location to be Adam's all feed vids. First thing I did was I set my my window up. I set my events up here for the window being the native window, the clicked for the mouse events, pressed mouse event, the release mouse event. Then I dropped all my buttons into my array here, and I iterated through them, and what I did was I gave them all a button mode of true so that you get the nice pointer finger when you go over them, and I gave them all an event listener for clicked, released, and pressed. And my three functions here, clicked, when you click the minimize button, it's going to minimize it. Close button is going to close it. The top Chrome isn't going to do anything when you click it. The next thing that I did here was on the button pressed function, I put, in the case that it's a top Chrome, when you have the mouse down, you're going to start dragging it around and make the window a little bit more transparent. When minimize and close button are pressed, you're just going to make them show up more, like a down state kind of. And when you release the buttons, it's going to, if you're on the top Chrome, it's going to make it show back up totally opaque. And if you're on the minimize or the close button, it's going to make them go back to transparent if you didn't click them. Alright, then I'm going to set up my application look and feel. I set up some of my alphas here for the logos and the graphics. I give it a bevel to give it a little bit of a 3D look. And actually, I used an internal glow filter to give it a bevel. I don't really like the bevel filter too much unless you want to look like you have a light coming from one location. This just gives it a nice even round, like the light is coming right from the top. So you set up a glow filter, and then you give it attribute of inner equals true. Then I start my application functionality, and this is really where everything really starts to get good. What I do first is I set up my RSS catcher. That's going to be a new URL loader. It's going to go out and grab the feed location, which is this right here, which is Adam's feed allvids.php. The next thing that I do is I set up my RSS path, and that's going to be a new URL request. That's going to be what tells my RSS catcher where the website is. And I'm going to set up my RSS display. That is going to be a new HTML loader. I will do another tutorial on some of the intricacies of this HTML loader, but for right now, you have all the basics in this tutorial. So RSS display, which is my HTML loader, the background is Paint's default background equals false. I don't want it to have a white background. If you want it to have a white background, you can set Paint's default background to be true. It'll be just like your regular browser. All the pages will have a white background unless you set it to false here. Now, my RSS display width, I'm going to set that to be the feed display width, and feed display is that this right here, this little text box. Like I said, the only reason it's there is for placement, and that's what I'm using it for right now. So I'm going to get the width of that. I'm also going to assign the RSS display, or that HTML loader, I'm going to assign its height to be the same height as that text box, and along with the X and the Y are also going to be the same as that text box. I'm going to add an event listener to my HTML loader, RSS display, and it's going to be event.html render .setScrollBar. So when my HTML renders, when it's all done showing up in this HTML loader, then I'm going to set my scroll bars up. So when all of my HTML has loaded, I'm going to run the setScrollBar function. And I also have content scroll bar, which is the instance name for my scroll bar on my stage. I'm going to set an event listener to that for event scroll.scroll feed. And the reason I'm setting an event.scroll for my scroll bar is technically the scroll bar UI is not really set up to be used with an HTML loader. So I've kind of done a little bit of a workaround here by manually assigning some attributes to the scroll bar. So when your scroll bar detects that I'm trying to scroll it, it's going to run the scroll feed function. When your RSS display is finished rendering all of its HTML, it's going to set the scroll bar status. And now that I've set up all of my definitions and attributes for these two items here, I'm going to add my RSS display to the stage. Okay, now that that's added to the stage, what I want to do is I want to load the content into it. So RSS path.url, which is my URL request up here, the .url refers to where it's pointing, and that's going to be equal to the feed location, which is Adam's All Videos tutorial. Now RSS catcher, I'm going to add an event to that. The RSS catcher is the URL loader. That's what's going out and actually getting Adam's RSS feed. I'm going to add an event listener of complete to that. So when it's complete, I want to parse my RSS. Okay, and now I want to load my RSS path into my RSS catcher. So my URL loader is now going to use my URL request to load Adam's RSS feed. And the very first thing that it's going to do is it's going to parse the RSS. Before it ever places it on the stage, it's going to parse it out.